The listening post floated alone at the far edge of the Narian belt, where even light seemed tired of traveling. Its crew of 6 lived quiet, uneventful lives. The only sounds were the soft hum of machinery and the occasional clink of tools. Out here, nothing ever happened. That was why the signal felt so wrong. It started as a faint ripple in the static. Officer Rin Valen almost missed it, his eyes half closed from another long night of scanning empty space. But the sound came again, too regular to be random, too precise to be noise. He sat up straight, fingers tapping on the console. The transmission was old, very old, but it was still moving through the dark, traveling for who knew how many centuries before finding them. He played it back. The voice was deep, firm, and in a language no translation program could identify. Still, there was something in the tone, commanding, sharp, like a warning. The words were repeated 3 times. Then silence. Rin tried the universal translator. Again. The station's AI paused, worked for several minutes, and then displayed the result on the screen in shaky, imperfect letters. "We are returning." The air felt heavier after that. He called the rest of the crew. They gathered in the control room, watching the playback in tense silence. The voice filled the chamber, low and steady. No one spoke for several seconds after it ended. Finally, the captain laughed nervously and waved it away. "An old distress beacon," she said. "It's probably from a dead colony ship." But Rin wasn't convinced. The signal was too clean, too deliberate. And the strange thing was timing. The broadcast repeated every few minutes, but not evenly. The intervals were shrinking, like someone was counting down. When he mentioned this, the captain frowned, but dismissed him. The Galactic Council would never take this seriously. They had dismissed dozens of strange signals over the years, and Rin knew why. Most of them turned out to be static, reflections, or clever hoaxes. But this was different. He dug into the archives. The audio waveform matched nothing in the station's database, and no species known to the Council spoke with that exact range or rhythm. But there was a match buried deep in restricted files locked behind encryption, files marked only with the word Terran. His request for access was denied within seconds. No explanation, just a red warning that the information was restricted by Council law. That was when the rumors came to mind, stories from his academy days about a species called humans. Apex predators, war builders, the kind of enemy you didn't fight, you avoided. But those were myths. Fairy tales to scare young cadets. The galaxy's historians agreed humans never existed, and yet here was a voice that matched their supposed speech patterns perfectly. The crew returned to routine duties, but Rin kept the signal running on a private channel. He listened to it over and over, feeling the tension in the tone, the strange weight in each word. If it was a hoax, it was a masterful one. 3 days later, something else happened. The signal's origin. Point shifted slightly, not in space, but in time. The bursts were coming faster now. Countdown was real. He traced the signal's path and froze. It was coming from inside an uncharted sector known as Redlock Zone. That place was sealed centuries ago after dozens of ships went missing there. The Council had built automated warning beacons around it, flashing a single message: "Do not enter." Rin pulled up the zone's old exploration records. The last expedition vanished without a trace. No debris was ever found. After that, the Council forbade entry and erased the coordinates from most navigation maps. But there it was, blinking on his display. The signal came from its dead center. When he brought it to the captain again, she warned him not to dig deeper. "Some things are locked away for a reason," she said quietly. Her tone was different this time, less dismissive, more careful. That night, Rin couldn't sleep. He sat alone in the control room, watching the stars. The message played again. "We are returning." Each time, it seemed a little clearer, as if the voice were getting closer. He thought about the Redlock Zone, about the vanished expeditions, about the rumors of a species that fought wars on a scale the galaxy had never seen. Myths had power. Myths could be dangerous. Sometimes, myths were built from truth. By the 4th day, the countdown was almost complete. He didn't know what would happen when it reached 0, but he knew it would not be quiet. The air on the station seemed charged, like the moment before a lightning. Strike at 3:14 station time. The AI spoke for the first time without a prompt. Its voice was flat, synthetic, but something in it felt uneasy, signal strength increasing. Its estimated time to zero, 13 hours. The rest of the crew stirred, finally unable to ignore it. The captain ordered a priority transmission to the council, but even before the message left the station, the long-range sensors detected something unusual. A faint object appeared on the edge of the red look, zone a small glint against the dark. No heat signature, no transponder, just there. Watching, and then without warning, every light in the station dimmed. The AI's voice came again, barely above a whisper. Source identified. Human origin probable. The crew stared at each other, the myths suddenly feeling far too real. Rin's heart pounded. Signal played again, now so loud it seemed to shake the walls. We are returning out in the black. The glint vanished. But the signal did not. It kept coming, faster, stronger, unstoppable. Somewhere inside the redlock zone, something had woken up. It was coming their way. The sealed border of the redlock zone stretched ahead like a wound in space. Warning beacons drifted in a wide circle, each one flashing the same old message in dozens of languages. Do not enter. Their outer shells were scarred, their transmitters barely working after centuries. Even so, no one had dared to cross in generations, Captain. Erin stood at the viewport of the Vigilant Dawn, her hands clasped behind her back. She was not the kind of officer who ignored orders, but the signal had changed everything. The countdown was almost at zero. And the source was here inside the one place the galaxy had agreed to leave alone. Last chance to turn back, the navigator muttered. No one moved. The crew had all felt it, that invisible pressure in the air since the signal began. Some part of them knew they were not just chasing an old mystery. They were moving toward something alive. The ship crossed the beacon line. For a second, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the ancient machines flickered and died. The steady warning lights went dark. The beacons powered down completely, their small thrusters falling silent. It was as if the zone had been waiting for someone to step inside. The Vigilant Dawn pushed forward, engines humming low. The space beyond was quiet, too quiet. The sensors showed almost no movement, no normal drift of space debris. It was like entering a sealed vault. Ryn Valen sat at his console, eyes fixed on the readings. I've got something. Multiple contacts, scattered. No power, no life signs. The ship's floodlights cut across the darkness, revealing shapes ahead. The first was a cruiser, its hull torn open like paper. The markings were from a species extinct for millennia. Another wreck appeared, a battleship, its armor melted in. Strange, uneven patterns, as though it had been struck by weapons that didn't belong to any modern arsenal. Then another, and another. They floated silently, hundreds of dead ships from dozens of civilizations. None of them matched in design, but all bore the same kind of destruction, fast, precise, merciless. Who could have done this? Someone whispered. Answer stayed unspoken. They moved deeper. The wrecks thinned out, replaced by fragments of strange black metal the scanners couldn't identify. The ship's AI, normally calm, spoke with an edge in its tone. Warning. Material is older than all recorded galactic history. Estimated age, 20,000 years or more. Then, without warning, the sensors lit up. A massive object had appeared at the edge of detection, so large the system had trouble processing it. It's moving, Rin said quietly. Everyone stared at the main display. The object's shadow began to cross in front of a cluster of stars, swallowing their light. It wasn't just big, it was colossal, bigger than any station or capital ship they had ever seen. The captain ordered more power to the lights, but the beams barely reached the edge of the silhouette. It passed in front of them with deliberate slowness, as if it were studying them. No signal, no transmission. It's that enormous shape drifting, blocking out the stars like an eclipse. Then the lights on the Vigilant Dawn flickered. The AI's voice came again, quiet but certain. Unknown vessel. Probability of human origin. High. The crew froze. On the outer hull of the massive shadow, something glinted. It wasn't metal damage. It was a mark. Symbols. Letters in a language the AI had not spoken in centuries. The captain leaned forward. "Can you translate?" The AI hesitated. "Partial translation. UN's Leviathan." The name hung in the silence, heavy as the dark around them. The shadow slowed, then began to turn toward them. Inside the control room, no one breathed. Out there in the dead heart of the Redlock Zone, something impossibly old and impossibly dangerous had just noticed them, and it was coming closer. It wasn't a planet. It wasn't an asteroid. As the colossal shape emerged from the darkness, the vigilant dawn's floodlights caught edge, splat, jagged, mechanical. The hull stretched beyond the limit of their beams, scarred by what looked like thousands of battles. Entire craters pitted its surface, yet its structure remained whole, like a predator carrying the marks of old kills. The AI enhanced the image, revealing faded white letters along one side. UN's Leviathan. No one spoke. The words meant nothing to most of the crew, but to Rin, they burned in his mind. He had seen the term UNS once, in a restricted archive. The description had been erased before he could finish reading, but he remembered one phrase: Human Naval Command. The Leviathan drifted slowly, its massive bulk gliding with eerie precision. No heat signature, no active weapons. But it wasn't dead. It chose to move like this, silent and watching. The captain's voice was low. "Prepare boarding drones. I want eyes on that thing." The drones launched, tiny sparks against the black. They drifted toward the Leviathan's hull, scanning as they went. The readings came back strange. The ship's armor wasn't any metal known to the galaxy. It absorbed almost all energy, as if it had been designed to survive weapons no one else possessed. The first drone reached an airlock. To their shock, the mechanism responded, ancient servos grinding to life. The door opened with a deep metallic groan, dust and frost spilling into space. The camera feed switched to the drone's point of view. Inside, corridors stretched in perfect lines, illuminated by faint dying lights. Dust hung in the air like frozen mist. Signs in an alien human script were painted on the walls. The deeper the drone went, the more unsettling it became. Rooms were still furnished, chairs bolted to the floor, consoles intact. As if the crew had simply vanished in the middle of their duties. Life support is partially active, the AI reported. Systems functioning far beyond expected design lifespan. In the central chamber, the drones stopped. A massive transparent cylinder dominated the room. Inside floated a figure humanoid dressed in black and gray armor. Frost clinging to every surface, the drone's sensors picked up a faint life sign. Rin leaned forward. "That's a human." The word hung in the air like a curse. Before anyone could react, the drone feed flickered. The Leviathan's internal lights surged brighter, one section at a time, as if the ship were waking up. Distant echoes rang through the corridors, deep and mechanical. The AI's voice trembled, core systems activating. Energy output increasing exponentially. The frost inside the cylinder began to melt. The figure's chest rose, slow but steady. Fingers twitched, its eyes still closed, but moving beneath the lids. Then the ship's systems roared to life, filling every channel with a single, ancient voice. It was deep, human, and sharp with authority. "All crew, prepare for reactivation." The Leviathan's engines flared, casting long shadows over the vigilant dawn. The cylinder's locks released with a hiss. The human's eyes opened, and every ship in the sector Reed registered the same signal. A command pulse older than the galaxy itself. The figure inside the stasis chamber drew its first full breath in thousands of years. A thin mist of frost swirled around him as the glass slid open with a slow hiss. His eyes, gray-cold, focus moved over the room without confusion, as if he had closed them only yesterday. Rin felt the air in the vigilant dawn's control room shift, though they were still watching through the drone feed. The man stepped out of the chamber, his armored boots striking the deck with sharp, deliberate sounds. He did not speak, but every system in the Leviathan seemed to respond to his presence. Lights flared along the massive corridors. Engines the size of cities rumbled awake. Across the galaxy, in places no one had ever connected to this ship, ancient sensors buried on dead worlds blinked to life, transmitting silent pulses into the void. The man reached a console. His hands moved quickly, confidently. The screen's dead moments ago, flooded with data in human script. The ship's AI, long dormant, spoke for the first time in their hearing. His voice was crisp, formal, and unlike most modernized sounded almost human. Commander Elias Kane. Authorization confirmed. Supreme command restored. The crew of the Vigilant Dawn exchanged tense glances. Rin leaned forward. Did it say? Supreme Commander? The mankin finally looked toward the drone. His eyes locked on the lens, and for a heartbeat Rin felt as though those eyes were staring straight through the camera, straight into him. Kane spoke, his voice deep and controlled. Identify yourselves. The captain hesitated, then activated the comm. This is Captain Aaron of the Vigilant Dawn, representing the Galactic Council. We detected your signal, and Kane cut her off with a raised hand. The council still exists. He muttered something under his breath, too low to catch, then turned back to the console. What year is it? They told him. Kane's face was unreadable, but his tone shifted lower, harder. That means I've been gone. Too long. The Vigilant Dawn's sensors screamed as the Leviathan's weapon systems came online. Turrets the size of towers rotated and locked into position. Massive energy cores began charging, drawing power levels beyond anything the Council's fleets could produce. Kane didn't look up from his work. If the enemy is still out there, have very little time. The captain frowned. Enemy? What enemy? Kane's gaze met hers through the feed again. This time, there was no mistaking the cold weight in his expression. They called themselves the Veil. And if you're hearing my signal, that means they've found a way back. Before anyone could respond, the Leviathan's long-range sensors lit up. Unidentified warp signatures, dozens of them, had appeared just beyond the edge of the red lock zone. Kane's voice was calm, almost too calm. Contact in 3 hours. Prep for engagement. In the silence that followed, Rin realized something terrifying. This man had been asleep for 20,000 years, and yet he wasn't surprised the enemy had returned. It was as if he'd been expecting it, and somewhere in the cold dark of space, those ships were coming closer. The first Veil ships arrived without warning, sleek black silhouettes that seemed to drink in the starlight around them. No running lights, no engine glow. They glided forward like shadows given form, their hulls covered in shifting patterns. That made scanners struggle to lock on. On the Vigilant Dawn, the crew stared at the sensor readouts in disbelief. Nothing in the Council's vast archives matched the readings. These weren't just warships, they were something older, something built with the kind of precision that came from centuries of perfecting the art of destruction. The first one fired. A single beam of dark energy cut through the void and struck a small moon on the edge of the redlock zone. There was no explosion, just a ripple. And then the moon was gone, dissolved into dust and drifting debris. No sound, no warning. One instant there, the next erased. The Vigilant Dawn's bridge went silent. They're not targeting us, Rin said slowly, voice tight. They're showing us what they can do. On the Leviathan, Commander Elias Kane stood like a statue. Watching the incoming ships, his voice when it came over the comm was steady, but carried a weight that silenced every conversation on both vessels. That's just a scout group. The Veil doesn't commit their full strength until they know. Their prey is weak. How many more will there be? Captain Aaron asked. Kane's eyes narrowed. If they think humanity is gone, they'll send a fleet large enough to erase every world they find. We're not going to give them the chance. The Leviathan's weapons came online in full. The ship's hull seemed to unfold, revealing banks of cannons, missile silos, and strange rotating emitters that glowed with a deep blue light. The power readings spiked so high that the Vigilant Dawn systems struggled to keep their sensors from overloading. The Veil ships broke formation and advanced the Leviathan. Fired, one of the massive emitters pulsed, sending out a beam so bright it burned across the crew's vision, even through filters. The beam didn't just strike the lead Veil cruiser, it passed through it, cutting the ship clean in half and continuing on to carve apart two more behind it. No explosion, just silent, perfect destruction. The Veil responded instantly, their black holes shifting as they fired weapons that bent space in visible ripples. The Leviathan's shields shimmered with each hit, but they held absorbing attacks that would have reduced modern warships to wreckage in seconds. Inside the Vigilant Dawn, crew members gripped their consoles as they watched. It wasn't just the power that stunned them, it was the precision. Every shot from the Leviathan hit exactly where it needed to, crippling enemy ships with surgical accuracy. But Rin noticed something. For every Veil ship destroyed, Kane seemed cautious. Holding back, he asked the question no one else dared. "Commander, why not finish them all?" Kane's eyes were cold. "Because this isn't their main force. I need one alive to send a message." The last Veil scout, heavily damaged but still functional, jumped to warp. Kane didn't stop. He turned back to his crew. "They'll run home to report humanity's return. And when they come back," his voice dropped, almost a growl, "we'll be ready." Somewhere in the depths of the Leviathan, the ship's AI began transmitting a signal on encrypted channels, one that didn't match any council code. Rin glanced at the data stream, and his stomach tightened. It wasn't a distress call. It was an awakening command, and whatever it was calling to was answering. The Leviathan's engines burned brighter as Kane locked in a course. Without asking for permission, without even explaining, the massive warship pulled away from the Vigilant Dawn and dove deeper into the Redlock zone. The Vigilant Dawn followed at a cautious distance, her crew's silent eyes fixed on the colossal vessel ahead. The space around them grew darker. Stranger, the stars seemed to thin, placed by swirling shadows that shifted like smoke. After nearly an hour, the Leviathan slowed. Before them loomed a dead star, its light long extinguished. Hanging cold and black in the void, orbiting it, were hundreds, no, thousands of warships. At first, Rin thought they were wrecks. Their hulls were dark, their engines cold, and not a single light shone from any of them. But the longer he looked, the more wrong that felt. These ships were not destroyed. They were waiting silent fleet, Kane said over the comm, his voice carrying a strange mix of pride and grimness. Left here for one reason, the day the Veil came back. The Leviathan drifted into the graveyard, moving between towering battleships and sleek destroyers. Some of the hulls bore human markings. In the same script as the Leviathan, others carried strange hybrid designs, suggesting humanity had once fought alongside. Leonelizor conquered them. Kane brought the Leviathan to a halt at the center of the formation. They won't move without a human command signal. No AI, no alien, no council officer could make them obey. The Vigilant Dawn's captain frowned. "These ships are over 20,000 years old. They can't still function." In answer, Kane placed his hand on a console. The Leviathan's AI spoke in a tone unlike before, deeper, almost ceremonial. "Command. Verification complete. Awakening protocols engaged." Across the fleet, engines began to glow. Lights flickered to life. The void, once still and silent, was now filled with the hum of thousands of reactors powering up. Massive cannons rotated into position. Shields shimmered like waves across hulls the size of cities. Rin felt his skin prickle. "We just went from one warship to a force big enough to wipe out the council fleet." Kane turned toward the comm. Feed, his expression like stone. "The council couldn't fight the Veil if they tried. That's why humanity didn't trust them with this. These ships were built for one thing: extermination." The captain stiffened. "Extermination of who?" "The Veil," Kane said simply. "And anything that tries to stop us?" As the silent fleet aligned into formation, a new signal echoed through space Veil transmission. It wasn't words, but a pulse, low and resonant, felt more than heard. The Leviathan's AI interpreted it as a hunting call. Kane's jaw tightened. "They know where we are. Good." On the sensors, hundreds of Veil warp signatures began to appear, converging on their location. Rin's hands clenched. "That's a full battle group." Kane didn't even blink, and we'll give them a full welcome. The silent fleets. Weapons charged as the first black shapes of the Veil ships emerged from hyperspace. Surrounding the dead star, it was no longer a hunt. It was a war. The void lit up like the birth of a star. From every corner of space, ships began to arrive, tearing through hyperspace in streaks of burning light. They weren't the sleek, fragile craft of the Galactic Council. These were predators. Black-armored. Warships with jagged holes and sharp, angular designs, their engines burning white-hot. Every one of them bore the same faded mark in human script. The silent fleet was no longer silent. Thousands of vessels formed up in perfect formations, moving with the kind of precision no alien navy could match. There was no hesitation. No drifting lines. They maneuvered as one, a single lethal organism. Every movement sharpened by millennia of dormant purpose. On the vigilant dawn, the crew stood frozen. This wasn't just a fleet, which was the return of a power the galaxy had convinced. Itself was dead. Kane stood at the Leviathan's command platform, his voice calm but carrying like a blade through the comm channels. All units, target acquisition. On my mark, the Veil thinks they've cornered us. Show 'em what that mistake costs. The first wave of Veil ships surged forward, their black holes rippling as they fired space-warping weapons. Energy bent and twisted, tearing at the shields of the human fleet only for the shimmering barriers to hold, absorbing the attacks like rain on stone. Kane gave the order. The Leviathan fired first, its main gun unleashing a white-blue beam so bright it cast shadows across the dead star itself. The shot ripped through 4 Veil cruisers in a single pass, the beam continuing until it vanished into the darkness. Seconds later, the rest of the human fleet opened fire. The void became a storm. Railgun slugs the size of shuttles tore through. Veil armor. Missile swarms streaked between ships, their warheads detonating in silent bursts of light. Beam cannons lanced through the dark, cutting Veil ships apart with merciless precision. Every strike was coordinated. Every maneuver anticipated. Where the Council's fleets would have hesitated, humanity's ships pressed forward. Carving holes in the enemy lines and driving deeper, the vigilant Dawn's captain could only watch. Her voice barely a whisper. This is why they were feared. Rin couldn't look away. The Veil was powerful, deadly but here, against humanity's war machine, they were prey. And Kane was the apex predator. Still the Veil did not break. More warp signatures appeared, more black warships pouring into the system. They fought with ruthless determination, their numbers growing faster than the fleet could destroy them. Kane didn't slow. He pushed the Leviathan forward, tearing into the thickest cluster of enemy ships. The silent fleet followed without hesitation, cutting a bloody path straight toward the largest Veil signature on the sensors. The AI confirmed it. Primary target located. Probability. Veil command ship. Kane's lips curved into something, between a smirk and a snarl. Then that's where we finish this. The entire human fleet shifted formation, engines blazing, weapons charging for one last push. The galaxy had not seen humans in 20,000 years. Now it was about to see them strike at the heart of their oldest enemy. And when the jump, signatures stabilized, the entire force vanished in a single, coordinated hyperspace leap. Straight into the Veil's homeworld system. The Veil homeworld was a black jewel in the void vast, cold, and shrouded in rings of warships. They had been waiting. The instant the silent fleet emerged from hyperspace, the darkness lit with weapons fire. Planetary defense cannons ignited like lightning storms, hurling beams and mass drivers at impossible speeds. The surrounding ships moved in flawless unison, a black wall of death. On any other day, against any other enemy, four. I first the man after Sci-Fi. For just first some sense and its hull glowing from re-entry heat as its shields absorbed. The first barrage. The rest of the silent fleet spread out in a precise predator's encirclement. They did not fire all at once. HFY was timed, each strike opening weaknesses for the next. Bale ships fell in waves, not from brute force, but from relentless, calculated dismantling. Kane's voice cut through the coms, cold and final. Remember what they called Usmith. Give them something real to fear. The Leviathan's main gun charged, its core reactors glowing so bright that even the planet's shadow could not hide it. The beam that followed wasn't just light, it was an extinction line, carving through the largest Vale command ship and punching straight into the planet's upper crust. Explosions rippled across the surface. The silent fleet's missiles rained down, each warhead carrying payloads designed millennia ago planet killers. The Vale's homeworld lit like a dying star, its oceans boiling away, its cities vanishing in silence. Still, Kane did not order retreat. He gave them one last gift. On every open frequency in the system, the voice of humanity's commander echoed, "We were never gone. We were watching. The next one who seeks to hunt us will not live to regret it." The last of the Vale defenses crumbled. The Leviathan turned away from the burning world, leading the silent fleet back into hyperspace. When the jump traces faded, only ruins and silence remained, and across the galaxy, whispers spread faster than light. The humans had returned, and they would never be forgotten again.